Hello, everyone. I hope it is well with you this evening. My name is Beatrice Sidede. I'm a senior clinician and the CEO of Jobefa Medical and Wellness Centers. I'm here today to present to you the wellness aspect of healthcare. And before I get there, I want us just to define disease. It's important for us to talk about disease because anytime you walk into a hospital setup, you are suffering in one way or the other. But sometimes we may not have understood what the word disease really means. By definition, simple definition, I would say disease is made up of two words. Dis, which is a prefix of is. And those two words come together to form the word disease. But this just means difficult. This just means difficult. And is, we know the meaning of is. As you can see on your screen, its meaning is that you're free from something that pains you, disquiets you, or burdens you. Or in other words, you'd say, to lessen the pressure or tension, especially by slackening, lifting, or shifting. That means is. So for the introduction, disease can simply be defined as a state of not being at ease or relative absence of ease. So when one is not at ease, then they are considered to be sick. So sickness is not just about physical pain. Sickness is also about emotional and psychological pain. At this point, we should also see that we are living in a society where we have fever pitch, we are dealing with fever pitch stress levels or mental duress. So high levels of mental or physical stress is a common cause of disease in our society. And therefore, there's a strong connection between the inner peace. The kind of peace I want to talk about is the true peace, the inner peace, the peace that is from God. True peace comes from God, the author of life. It is a gift to man through righteousness of Jesus Christ, who is the Prince of Peace. So we cannot talk about peace without the maker of peace. Mental health and physical health, therefore, cannot be separated because they both originate from the author of life. And at this point, I'm even glad that I'm using a platform, a church platform, that is All Saints Cathedral. And I would really want to remind us, as some of us when we were growing up, we went through church schools. And when we were sick, we were being taken to hospitals run by churches. So it is the responsibility of the church, therefore, to promote emotional, psychological, and physical health. Very important. We see that Christ, when he walked on the face of this world, he spent a lot of his time just healing, honestly, just healing. He was not even seated in a building that is licensed for it to begin to take care of the sick. Christ, healing was flowing from his whole being. And he spent, to me, my approximation is over 90% of his time healing the sick. He still heals the sick today through the works of the Holy Spirit, who is a helper even to the healthcare worker. When I talk of the healthcare worker, I'm talking of that professor in medicine to the extension community health worker who attends to the sick. We must know that we need to give God his space because he's the author of life. God created a perfect universe by balancing nature for our own good. However, we have wandered away from this divine design concerning health and have heavily commercialized healthcare. You know, that healthcare that your grandmother or your grandfather, our forefathers, would take care of just by applying God's own wisdom on how to feed people, on how to take care of the sick, is no longer fashionable. and it's quackish. So the more expensive the healthcare, the more, if I build up a hospital that looks like a 5-star hotel and put heavy machines there and ask you to sell your shamba or your house to pay for your bill, that's what you'd go for. That was a mind shift. And it's taking a toll on us right now. I'm not against health systems, but what part are we playing naturally? Like the cat in your house, your dog. Do they fall sick? And how many times do you take them to a vet? If they fall sick, what do they do? If you are in the wilderness, the animals in the wilderness, what do they do? Do they fall sick? What do they do? What is happening to them? They are still within God's divine design concerning their health. They have God's wisdom. So that's what I'm talking about today. Causes of disease. Having talked about God's space, I want us now to talk about causes of disease. Whenever you walk into a hospital, either you have an infection, a layman's language calls it germs, or a more technical term in the healthcare fraternity, we call them pathogens. Or you can come to the hospital and you have poisons in your body or chemicals, or you can have abnormal cells, or you can have mental health issues, or you can have injuries. Infections, let's talk about infections. Infections can be in form of, or infections are caused by tiny microbes that we cannot see with our eyes. There could be bacteria, there could be viruses, there could be fungal in nature, there could be parasites, worms, protozoa, and many others. Pathogens, which are basically the germs that cause infections, have various mechanisms of entering into their host and also have ways of evading immediate destruction by the host's immune system. Poisons or chemicals. Poisons can be in the form, we get poisons from food, the foods we take, drinks, drugs, they can be prescription or self-medication, the air we breathe in if it's polluted, the pesticides that we use in our farms, manukato za urembo, topical preparations, indulgence, things like alcohol, smoking, etc., etc. Abnormal cells. These are major cause of health issues right now, and it's a heavy burden on the government, in the families, the church, and it's good for us to know, how do abnormal cells come to be there? Your body is made up of trillions of well-differentiated cells. When I say well-differentiated, these are cells that perform various functions in your bodies. They form organs that work together to form you. These are formed the time you are in your mother's womb. It's God's miracle, the way just an egg and a sperm come together to form a human being. These cells can be triggered in life, or these cells can be triggered by lifestyles. These abnormal cells, they can be triggered by lifestyles, infections, to start changing and lose their functions. Abnormal cells can be broadly divided into inflammatory cells, benign cells, or malignant cells. So, abnormal cells, when I say inflammatory cells, these are cells that are inflamed chronically, and you always go to your doctor and what we give you are painkillers. Examples of inflammatory conditions are like groups of arthritis, autoimmune conditions, and the list is so long. What is quite catching about inflammatory conditions is that you never heal. The doctor will tell you, utatumia tu hizi painkillers, When the painkillers begin to not work on you or you have dependence, we move to steroids, and at one point the doctor tells you, there's nothing much I can do for you. Those are inflammatory cells. Benign cells, these are abnormal multiplication of your body cells, but when you go to the doctor will help you know that this is not cancer, it's just a growth. Some of them are like benign, enlarged prostate, which is benign, uterine fibroids, breast lumps, that are not cancerous. But the danger with these cells is that they have to, or if we don't take care of them, they can turn malignant. And it's your doctor who can help you in that area. Malignant cells, these are cells that are cancerous in nature. This is an epidemic right now, an epidemic that could even be worse than COVID or any other killer disease. If you go to centers that are taking care of patients with malignant cells or cancer, inakaa kama soko. You go to Kenyatta, go to Nairobi Hospital, go to Aga Khan, and you fly to India and see what I'm talking about. It's a real health threat that we must think about seriously. And I think that's why we're even talking today. How can we help our oncologists? Mental health. Mental health is a major problem in our society, but you'll agree with me that we don't give it the importance it deserves. Mental health begins from the family level to the community and to a nation. And it's not hidden that this is an area that we have greatly stigmatized. And we only go to see mental health care providers when we are on the extreme end of the spectrum, where we are making a lot of noise. Maybe we want to walk naked, or we are violent. But now, there are activities that we are exposed to that can cause a problem in our mental health. They include child abuse, trauma, neglect, social isolation and loneliness, discrimination and stigma, social disadvantaged, poverty or debt. Debt, very important. A lot of Kenyans wake up in the morning and it's like, nitalipaje ile loan? Nitaweka nini kwa meza leo? How will I pay my school fees? How do I pay my mortgage? How do I pay my rent? So poverty and debt is a major issue in our setup. Severe long-term stress and illness is a major cause of mental health issues. Lack of enough sleep, of course. Mental health can therefore have a negative effect on one's decision making and fight of chronic diseases. Injuries, of course, we know it's a major cause of hospital visits. And you can see from your screen the causes of injuries. Summary. Sometimes taking care of the above situations become an uphill task even to the healthcare providers. Our Creator figured it out much earlier than we know. From the beginning, He figured it out. So, we are advised to be found within God's divine design concerning health, because it's a burden too heavy for us to carry just as humans. So, we need to know what was in God's mind concerning our health. At that point, we would say, therefore, the idea of holistic approach to disease management is godly. Having discussed the components of diseases, I want us just to summarize using 3 circles that overlap. A patient can come to the hospital and the diagnosis is infections. Always remember it's your doctor who will tell you what you're suffering from. The diagnosis can be infections. Number 1, it can be poisons. Number 2, it can be abnormal cells. Number 3. Or a patient can come in with acute or chronic infections, can come in with acute or chronic poisoning, or can come in with abnormal cells, or a patient can come in with a combination of infection and poisoning, a combination of poisoning and abnormal cells, or a combination of abnormal cells, infections, and poisoning. All these areas of sickness can result into a lot of mental problems on the patient and the family support systems, especially when the healing becomes elusive. It is therefore very important that holistic approach to disease management is applied as a weapon against these health problems. That is, killing many birds with one or two stones. Overly many times I've seen when I have applied holistic approach to disease management on these patients, they get a lot of other collateral benefits. Where if I was targeting, assuming a patient comes in with cancer, and I was targeting cancer, but this patient is also a known case of hypertension or diabetes or other problems, I see all these diseases somehow are addressed. This approach needs to be clearly understood by the patient and the whole family where they are caretakers or family support systems. If we don't involve the family effectively in understanding holistic approach to disease management, then this can lead to derailment of treatment, hence poor results. So I would just want to request all of us to really take time and understand what is this holistic approach to disease management. It's not Greek science. It is actually an approach that helps us gravitate back to nature, natural approach to disease management. The space of medicine still remains, and for medicine to be good, to be called medicine, yani dawa, then it has to be safe, easy to use, and of good efficacy. And it should be able to address the cause of the problem, not treat the problem symptomatically. Components of holistic approach to disease or health management, or sometimes some doctors call it ultimate prescription. I have broken down these components into 4 major areas where, to me, I've numbered them or I've listed them in order of importance. Power of the mind, knowledge, nutrition, hydration, exercise, and rest, and medicine. Now, I want to expound on this. This is where now we really need to understand what is wellness aspect or what is holistic approach to disease. In this case, this group, I know you asked me to talk about cancer, but I want to talk about any debilitating illness. Any debilitating illness. Being on top of the list of the most important is the power of the mind. The mind is a very powerful institution that was created by God. It drives life, either positively or negatively, depending on how you use it. The mind makes us to be in likeness with God. And the mind can become the devil's workshop. So, whenever we start thinking about disease, we must know, what are we thinking, about this particular disease? And the mind, even when you talk about the mind, we see the power of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. It's just about positive energy in the mind. There's nothing we can do, like in most cases when I have patients with me, there's nothing I can do to a patient who has shut me out or shut me off. There's nothing much I can do because in their mind, they say, the doctor said, I only have 1 month to live. And they believe in that, and there's nothing much you'll do for them. Another person comes in very ill, and in their mind, they believe they're going to make it. So that is power. That opens the door for the healthcare providers. That opens the door for relatives or caretakers of this patient. Or it also opens the door for the patient himself. Knowledge, number 2. From the mind, we talk about knowledge. There's a thin line between mind and knowledge because you fill your mind with good knowledge. So, this word knowledge here, sometimes I wonder what it is because people have gone to school. That is true for Kenyans. It's one of the countries with the best human resource. Worldwide, people have gone to school, but sometimes the more we read, the more we miss out on what is so basic. So, the Word of God tells us here again very clearly that our Creator is telling us, my people are suffering due to lack of knowledge. And that is a very powerful statement. My people are suffering due to lack of knowledge. So what is it that we are not doing? What is it that we are not thinking about that is relevant for our good health so that we stop suffering? Remember, we are talking about health. So knowledge, we need to be wise. We need to be wise like the way our forefathers were. They were taking care of diseases. What is it that they were doing? Having said that, I want to go to number 3. Number 3 has 2 or about 4 subtopics: nutrition, hydration, exercise, and rest. I'm going to talk about nutrition later. But hydration is basically the amount of water that we keep in our body. Your body is 70% water. So if you weigh 100 kgs and I dry you, or you get dry completely so that you don't have any water, your body will move from 100 kgs to 30 kgs because 70% was just water. And this water, we have to keep on making this water clean. You're supposed to take up to 2 liters of water, kama ni mbaya, in 24 hours. From the time you wake up to the time you're going to bed, just make sure you do about 2 liters of water for you, so that you keep on cleaning up the 70% water that is part of your body. Some people tell me, I take sodas, I take juices, I take this and that. There's a big difference between water and sodas. If you take a litmus paper to test the pH of water, it is not the same as soda or juice. So water is water, juice is juice. Exercise. Exercise is a very important aspect of our lives. The older generations, much earlier, there were people who were physically active from the time they woke up to the time they were going to bed. So they didn't have designated areas of, exercises like the way we have now, gym. But I would also want to tell my fellow women that the housework is good exercise for us. Walking is good exercise for us, If you don't have money to pay a gym, just get involved every day with your physical activities. They'll make you healthy. Rest. When I talk about rest, I'm not talking about sitting on a seat and, asking for a remote and, watching. When I talk of rest, I'm talking about 7 to 8 hours of continuous sleep. Because during this time, when you rest, you detox a lot and you repair the wear and tear that comes into your body. It's unfortunate that the healthcare system that we have, I don't know how to call it, but from my experience, I have seen patients who have gone for days without sleep. And a patient who is in pain and cannot sleep, that's a patient who can never do well. Because we see a lot of healing that comes when we are resting, because we shall detox and we shall repair wear and tear during sleep. So it's very, very important that we find ways of making a sick person sleep. When I look at my bullet number 3, that's nutrition, hydration, exercise, and rest. These are factors that affect the flesh, the body. And when we do it correctly, we see our bodies beginning to have natural way of taking care of itself. Why do I say that? When we feed appropriately, our bodies are well hydrated, well exercised, and rested well, your body begins to create its own alkaline environment. There are very few compartments in your body that God created acid in. That is your stomach. Another area is your gallbladder, and they are well encapsulated. An example, if acid leaves your stomach and goes into your esophagus, you'll get a heartburn. And normally that is the precursor of cancer of the esophagus in most cases. Most patients who suffer from cancer of the esophagus have a long history of acid reflux. They have been treated for ulcers for so long. Then finally now the doctor tells you, you have a tumor in your esophagus or your stomach. That is just but an example. So let us feed appropriately. Let us hydrate our body well, exercise well, and rest. Number 1, number 2, and number 3, that is stress-free life, as in peaceful mind, Knowledge will help you do the correct thing. Appropriate nutrition, hydration, exercise, and rest takes care of disease. I'm talking about what I have seen. Takes care of disease 60 to 70%. Number 4 ndio inakuanga dawa. And the way we hurry to the hospital to go and be given medicine. And for medicine to be good medicine, it has to be safe, easy to use, and of good efficacy. If I give you medicine that I know very well, I'll start dealing with severe side effects, then to me, that is not good medicine. So when I'm talking of these components of holistic approach to disease management, I don't think there's anything too difficult for us to practice. We just need to be, disciplined, intend that I'm going to do it right. Intentions are very important in life. Intend. I want to avoid stress. I want to have inner peace. I want to be knowledgeable. I want to do the correct things. I want to eat appropriately, make sure my body is well hydrated, exercise and rest. And tell me, if you practice that, if you're not yet sick, visits to the hospitals will be very few. If you're already sick, you'll find that you have taken care of yourself almost 60%. Yeah, so we see about nutrition, of course, is a long topic. And in nutrition, we recognize that God had very simple and clear instructions. God advises Adam to eat from the fruits of the tree. And the fruits of the tree are all what the tree has to offer from the head to the toe. Leaves, fruits, cereals, legumes, flowers, oxygen, stalks and stems, and all the tubers. Basically, we are what we eat. Our body is basically made of what we swallow every day, and therefore, health and nutrition are actually an important part of healthcare. So for me to talk about nutrition generally, I want us to see the concept of a tree. A tree can be as big as Mugumo or as small as Sukuma wiki. It is a tree. The principles remains the same. It has roots, it has stems, it has branches, it has leaves, it has, call it, fruits. So, we came from the soil. We were created from the soil. We identify with the soil so much. So, let's take an example of a lady who is pregnant, or a person who is anemic. They crave for soil. A lot of women will agree with me that when they're pregnant, you see them. These stones are even sometimes well sealed in supermarkets, and we go pick them. Sometimes you buy them by the roadside. This part of the country, we call it odoa. It's because basically this lady is craving for something that is in the soil that she needs in her body. But today we are going to talk about we don't have to eat soil for us to get what is coming from the soil. God created a tree that basically manufactures what is in the soil and brings it up in a more palatable form, in the form of tubers, in the form of stalks, in the form of leaves, in the form of fruits, cereals. So when we look at the tree from the head to the toe, it offers what God has made palatable that has been brought forth from the soil for us to feed on. So, the clergy know this much better than most of us. God gives Adam a simple instruction in the Garden of Eden. He tells Adam, can you eat from the fruits of the tree? I hope I'm making sense. Can you eat from the fruits of the tree? The fruits of the tree is not that, that mango or orange hanging on a tree. It is what the tree has to offer from the head to the toe. And I'm talking from the head to the toe of a tree, I mean from those leaves up there to the tubers. When we use that correctly, we find ourselves taking in what is medicinal. When I read the Bible in my mother tongue, it actually describes food as medicine. Yath, for those who understand that language. For the Luyas, it's omsaala. Others call it lunyasi. Our brothers from central Kenya, they call it mote. Mote ni dawa, you know. So, God gives Adam very clear instructions concerning what he's supposed to eat. And God does not even call it food, he calls it medicine. I hope you're together there. He calls it medicine. In my mother tongue, even when I go to see a doctor, I talk of the doctor, daktari on the konayap. I wish there was another Aluya or a Kikuyu to talk the same, but it's a cross section. Daktari ameniandikia dawa, daktari on the konayap. Then God is also telling Adam in the Garden of Eden, cham yadhgi. You know, he doesn't tell him, eat this food. He tells him, kula hizi dawa. So according to God who created us, what we eat is medicinal. When we eat it appropriately, we are actually taking care of our health, and we are even healing diseases that have afflicted our bodies. So I hope we are together there. So from there, I want us to discuss about what the tree has to offer. Let me start from down the tubers. You can see on your screens the different type of tubers that we have that offers us health. We can talk of stalks, the stalks that we eat that give us health. We can talk of the leaves that we eat that give us health, the fruits that give us health, the cereals, and above all, the tree produces oxygen that is essential in life. When your body is deprived of oxygen, even just for 10 minutes, it can cause brain damage and death. And this we freely get from trees. So I would want to talk to all of us that we should really protect trees. It's only a fool who cuts down trees. So now we have an understanding that a tree can be as big as Mugumo or as small as Kumawiki, but it has something that is so essential for your life, so essential for each one of us. So when we look at a tree from the head to the toe, it offers us all the colors of the rainbow. Either primary colors or secondary colors. But those colors, yes, they beautify our world, but those colors again, they are medicinal. At the wellness center, we have a wellness center in Kisumu where we take colors very seriously. And the kind of juices that we make for our patients in the morning are extracted from tubers, from stalks, from leaves, from fruits, you know, and generally what the tree has to offer. So when a patient takes that glass of healthy juices in the morning, she's taking in or he's taking in beta carotenes, which are known very well to be anti-tumor in nature. They're taking in vitamins, and they're taking in a lot of minerals. And you know, this is not Greek, because right from the time we are starting education in school, I remember as early as class 3, the teacher would tell us the 3 groups of foods. So the teacher would talk of starch or carbohydrates, sometimes they would be called energy. The teacher would talk about proteins. The teacher would talk about protective foods. So when we look at the tree generally, it has all those 3 groups of foods, and mostly it offers protection. From what? From diseases. I would want to encourage each one of us that we need to start having a desire and thinking seriously about this teaching from God Himself, that we look at food, whenever we take food, whenever we put food on the table, what we stock in our kitchens, let us look at it like it is medicine. And this particular one, I would want to talk to my fellow women. We are the people who manage our kitchen. Your kitchen is the powerhouse in your house. It's a ministry for energy. It is what keeps your family going. So let us stock in our kitchens the right foods that whenever you set a table in your house, you are giving not only food, but you are giving your family medicine that keeps them good. If you want to avoid pharmaceuticals, there are some houses, you visit a house, I've visited homes, and you take a walk to the kitchen or the whole unit, and it's full of used medicine packets, and we seem to be so proud, like, hey, hizi ndio zile madawa natumianga. Those medicines, to some levels, they poison our bodies if we use too much of it. And that is why inside every medicine you'll find a leaflet that tells you adverse reactions, side effects. So if you want to avoid that type of scenario, mothers and people who are responsible for buying food and cooking food, please just stock the right stuff in your kitchen so that you stop buying too much pharmaceuticals. There's so much that you can do as primary health care, just using the right foods in your kitchen, and you could find yourself visiting hospitals rarely. It's a known fact, and I think our forefathers knew this more than us, that some of these beta carotenes, which I've said, we get them from the various colors that we get from what the tree has to offer, what we eat. They knew it very well that they were medicinal in nature. And one very good example, organic carrots are herbs. Radish roots, beetroots, celery roots. And even now we know people have been taking a lot of ginger and turmeric just to fight this virus that is causing havoc right now. So I just want to let us know that medicines are herbs. And when you're fighting cancer, I've done this all the time with patients at the wellness center. They come in, maybe they have gone through chemo, they're having side effects due to chemo, or they're just down. They're just down due to the same disease. And when we apply the tree concept, what the tree has to offer for these patients, it's just amazing how they just wake up in 3-4 days and they're able to sit on the table and eat with others. And the only explanation I can give in this is that there is something in that juice, in that food, that has made this patient begin to look much better sooner than expected.